Na jó, most már menjél a faszomba!
This movie begins with two crippled friends, Zoli and Barba. Zoli couldn't walk and constantly had unbearable pain in his spine, so he had to always lie on his back and take pills. One afternoon, while the two friends played with a fire extinguisher that Barba had stolen, another dude in a wheelchair named Rupashov, who had just been released from prison, approached them and slapped Zoli in the face for wasting the fire extinguisher that way. He revealed that he had saved different kinds of people, young and old, from burning buildings when he was an active firefighter, so they should return the extinguisher to wherever they stole it from. Zoli and his friend became angry and tried to fight him, but Rupashov quickly showed them that they were nothing but weaklings. As he left, he asked them to come over to have some proper fun and took them to a club that night where Rupashov ordered all kinds of expensive drinks. The two friends asked him if he was a drug dealer because where did he get all that money? Rupashov laughed and replied that he wasn't a dealer, but told them he could give them some odd jobs that would make them enough cash to spend on the ladies. The next day, Zoli went to see the doctor with his mom, and the doctor informed them that Zoli's condition was getting worse, so they needed to act fast. Zoli needed support for his spine, and the surgery was expensive, but his mom was broke and couldn't afford it. She told the doctor that she had spoken with her ex-husband, and he was willing to assist. However, Zoli interrupted as he lay down and told them he was not having the surgery, surprising the doctor. Later in the car, he revealed why he didn't want the surgery. His father had left to get milk for 17 years. And why was he suddenly willing to help now? Meanwhile, Rupashov met a Serbian mafia boss named Rados, who gave him a secret mission with the promise of a huge cash reward. So Rupashov went to an open square to wait for a dangerous gang in the city. When they arrived, they initially drove past him, thinking he was just some homeless dude sitting around, and they waited for the Rados's representative, who was to meet them. At that moment, Zoli and Babar arrived in a car, and seeing them, Rupashov warned them to drive off, but the two dudes were too slow to understand. One of the gang members approached them to send them off, telling Rupashov to also get in the car and leave. However, he was shocked when Rupashov told him that he was the one they were supposed to meet. The other men came close, and Rupashov told them that Rados didn't want to work with their boss, Tony, anymore, who had just been released from jail. The men became angry and asked where Rados and the money were, but Rupashov advised them to leave quietly like good kids. However, this halfway baldy got even more pissed and stabbed Rupashov with a knife in his leg, but Rupashov didn't feel any pain since his waist downwards was already pretty much useless. The baldy got even angrier and kicked him on his chest, causing him intense pain, so Rupashov pretended to bring out a plastic bag and suddenly gunned them down. He then went over to Zoli and Babar and threatened to kill them, having witnessed what just happened. Following that, Rupashov was treated by his ex-girlfriend, and when he asked her to go see a movie with him, she declined, saying she was now seeing someone else and had accepted a marriage proposal from him. This made Rupashov sad, and he quietly left. Getting home, he started drinking as he thought about his ex and his past as a fireman. He was very sad about his misery and headed to an overpass in anger to throw himself off the stairs. The bro chose an easier method and didn't die, so he met with Rados after to return the gun and ask for his payment. Rados informed him that he had been attacked by Tony's men, and so they needed to get him. But the major problem was that they didn't know Tony's whereabouts and also could not get to him, or the police would be all over them. Rados then gave Rupashov the mission to go after Tony since he was the perfect person to disguise himself thanks to his crippled condition. Rupashov agreed to do it as long as he was going to be paid well. In the next scene, Rupashov was having his therapy session, learning to walk again even though he was in rigorous pain, when Zoli visited him and tried to settle the rift between them from their last encounter. But Rupashov suggested they forget them ever meeting each other. Rupashov continued trying to walk, but Zoli called him an idiot for thinking he would be able to walk again. Rupashov threatened to beat him again, but fell to the floor in the process, and while he struggled to get up, Zoli joined him on the floor and played some music. A few days later, Zoli and Babar attended a comic con to submit a comic they had been working on as their application for the amateurs competition, but the personnel turned it down, saying they still had a lot to work on. He advised that they try again next time, and if their work was good enough, it might even get published. Afterwards, Rupashov met Zoli and Babar again, and Zoli handed him a bag of bird food for his next mission. Rupashov met Rados again, and this time, Rados revealed that his house had caught fire the previous day, and he could have died in his sleep if not for one of his dogs that woke him up before things got really bad. Rupashov offered to get him a fire extinguisher, but Rados told him not to bother. Then, he went on to talk about how risky Rupashov's plan for the next mission was. But Rupashov was definite his plan would work, and requested only one gun, which made Rados think he was sick in the head or something. On the day of the mission, Rupashov went to the city square in clear sight of his target and started feeding the birds with the bird food Zoli gave him the other day. Meanwhile, Zoli and Babar were also in the same vicinity, watching what was about to happen, and when Rupashov got the perfect chance, he pulled the trigger from his plastic bag, killing his target, who happened to be Tony's lawyer. However, as the three left the scene, Rados watched from a distant vehicle, unknown to them. Following that, Zoli and his mom met with the doctor again, and while the doctor tried to persuade him to take the surgery, he got angry and left, cussing at the doctor. His mom later asked him why he acted that way, but he asked her why his dad had left in the first place. She tried explaining, but he wasn't buying all that crap because he believed it was because his dad couldn't cope with a crippled child. They got into an argument, and when Zoli told her he would rather have his dad's money spent on his funeral and not his treatment, his mom got annoyed and left. Meanwhile, Rupashov and his ex got on the same bus heading home, and she invited him to her upcoming wedding, saying she wanted everyone who was important to her to be there, so he painfully accepted the invitation. When Rupashov met Rados next, Rados was very mad because Rupashov had involved his two new friends in the mission, and he said he would only pay him his money if Rupashov killed them both. Because of this, Rupashov took Zoli and Babar for fishing in a secluded place, and when he got the chance, he threw both of them into the water. The two began to struggle in the lake, and as he decided to leave them to die, he felt bad for them and jumped into the lake to save them. However, when they got out, thanks to a stranger towing by, Rupashov told them it was only a bad joke. That night, while they warmed themselves, Rupashov gave Zoli a gun as a present and told him he might have to use it when he didn't want to. The next day, they decided to bring in some baddies for a fun time, and while the mini party went on, with the other two loving up with their girl each, Rupashov got talking with one of the girls and shared about his love for his ex, so the girl encouraged him to surprise her and do something big to get her back. So he agreed to walk over to the hospital, and the lady offered to help him achieve it. The next day, they all helped him walk to the hospital so he could surprise his ex when she came out, as though he had walked there alone. However, after waiting for a while and his ex not showing up, he decided to give her a call to ask where she was. But sadly, she told him she hadn't come to work that day, and when she asked why he had called, he told her he had lied, saying he just wanted to check on her. A few days later, Rupashov met Rados to get his payment, and when Rados asked him about his two partners, Rupashov told him he threw them in the lake and they both drowned. Rados believed this, and they went to the supermarket to get some meat, and while at it, Rupashov told Rados that his next mission to kill Tony would be the last, after which they would both separate with no further deals. However, that night, Rados headed to the disabled homes to confirm if Rupashov really killed the two cripples as he claimed, but he discovered that Rupashov had deceived him. The next morning, Rupashov went on the last mission with Zoli and Babar. He was going alone while the other two would wait in the car, and before he left, he told Zoli that he would be back in 20 minutes, but if he hadn't returned by then, he should call the police. When Rupashov got to the front of the gate, some men came to ask what he wanted, and he told them he had come to relay a message to Tony from his brother, who was in prison. The men took him in to meet Tony, but Tony was suspicious and asked how he got the address, to which he replied that Tony's brother had given him. Rupashov claimed that they were cellmates for 6 months. Tony further asked about the doctor who had done the surgery on his brother, and Rupashov replied that it was Dr. Coletti. Afterwards, Tony asked his men to search him, and when they found nothing on him, Tony allowed him in. Getting in, Tony began telling Rupashov about his past feats with his brother, but Rupashov wondered what the hole had got to do with him, so Tony revealed that his brother had died 2 days earlier, and he asked who the hell sent him them. Realizing that he had been busted, Rupashov reached for the gun he had secretly hidden and dropped 2 of Tony's men immediately. Tony quickly went to hide, but Rupashov ended up killing him and all his men. After he was done with the mission, he struggled to reach the gate on his wheels. Thinking it was all over, only to realize that the gate was locked. He tried opening it, but after a few failed attempts, he decided to use his gun. He discovered that he was out of bullets, so he called Zoli immediately so they could come get him with the car. When they arrived and tried to find how to open the gate, they suddenly heard the police siren. Rupashov became scared and wondered if they had called the police, but they told him no, so he hastened the 2 of them, asking Zoli to get on his wheels immediately and go distract the police while Babar used the car to crash the gate. Zoli went off quickly to stop the police and divert them to a different different location. Meanwhile, Rupashov managed to get in the car in time, and they escaped safely. However, that night, Rupashov burned the wheelchair he used for the mission and was still skeptical about why the police had come earlier. Suspecting it was they who had called the police, he told them they were dragging him and that this was their last night together. He promised to leave them some money and left the scene. The next day, Rados led Rupashov to a secluded place for his payment and then asked him to hang himself, revealing that he had discovered he didn't kill his two friends like he claimed. Rupashov tried to flee, but Rados held him back and said this was the easier way, or Rupashov could choose to be killed by Rados's dogs. Rupashov agreed to be hanged, and Rados hanged him before telling him that his friends wouldn't escape either. However, after Rados left, Rupashov managed to remove the rope from his neck before passing out. He returned to the other two and told them about Rados's plan to kill them. They planned on how to get him since they didn't know his house, and Babar came up with an idea to sneak a phone into his car so they could tail him to his house. This seemed like the perfect plan, and they agreed to go with this. The next day, Rupashov took Zoli along for his ex's wedding, and during the ceremony, he rolled up the stage to give a love speech about his ex, which made her very happy. After that, he met her in a corner and tried to kiss her, but she pushed him away and left in anger. Meanwhile, some dudes who had been watching him seized him and took him outside to give him a beating for being an idiot. But Zoli came just in time and threatened the men with a gun, so they left him, after which Zoli and Rupashov got on their way home. At the same time, elsewhere, Babar gave two dudes the phone to hide in Rados's car, but they barely got away though, as Rados's dogs almost gave them away. Following that, they successfully located Rados's house, and later that night, when Rados returned home, he realized that his domain had been compromised. Rupashov told Rados he brought him a gift, a fire extinguisher, and then asked for his money, but Rados showed him the key to the money vault and put it on the table, asking him to come take it if he could. He explained that if Rupashov brought out his gun, his dogs would attack him immediately, and he wouldn't be able to kill the three before they got to him. However, Rupashov brought out the dog anyway, and when the dog lunged toward him, he shot at the fire extinguisher, instantly covering the room in smoke so that the dog ran outside immediately. Rados immediately brought out a knife and attacked Rupashov. While they struggled together, Rados stabbed Rupashov, and Zoli quickly pulled out his gun to kill him, but it was already too late. Rupashov died in his wheelchair, and Zoli paid his respects before going to open the vault. But surprisingly, he only picked the money he needed for his treatment and quietly left the house. 4 months later, Zoli finally finished the comic he was working on with Babar and sent a copy to his father in Germany. He had now agreed to his father sponsoring his medical bills and was heading to the surgical room. Meanwhile, all these events that happened in this movie was you living in Zoli's comic book. The story was about a character named Rupashov, his father. The end.